Have you ever wondered about the unique role Christians play in politics? Let's take a quick journey through history, faith, and governance. Consider Moses and Joseph as they navigated political arena with integrity. These stories set the stage for Christian influence in politics today. The New Testament encourages us to respect our leaders and pray for their wisdom. Christians are encouraged to be active in governance, whether it's voting, leadership, or being well informed. Our involvement pursues justice and the common good aligned with Christian values. The Bible tells us to be the conscience of the nation, promoting godly living and justice. Engage thoughtfully and ethically, like the Apostle Paul under Roman rule. Christian involvement in politics can lead to just and ethical outcomes, be the salt and light in society, combating moral and spiritual decline. Join us in exploring this topic.
Okay, I want to thank Radiant Link Ministries for this opportunity to talk on Christians in politics and governance. Just by way of introduction, on the screen, my name is Dr. Moses Inyagumena. The second time I'm doing a series like this on why Christians need to be involved in politics. One of my old schoolmates describes me as the unlikely politician because most people had come to expect, because of my academic background, that I would be in academics. But the Bible says many are the plans in a man's heart, but only the purpose of God prevails. In a way, I'm glad the way my career has panned out, going via industry, and lately, about 2.5 years ago, getting involved in politics in my area of the United Kingdom, Wokingham Borough. My varied experience has given me the opportunity to see different people in life, see different ways things go, and how things are done in different aspects of the world. And politics is probably another aspect of a career. In 2023, I first stood to be a town councillor for Ely and Wokingham Borough. I got elected to the town council in 2023, but didn't quite make the borough. But this year, at the local elections, I stood again to be a councillor for Hillside. And by the grace of God, I got elected, and I'm one of the 54 councillors in Wokingham Borough Council. I'm not quite sure whether it's relevant or important, but I think it's important to say I'm the only Black councillor out of the 54. But what I want to talk about today is an issue that I think is important because most Christians do not think they need to be involved in politics. But politics is important. And so normally when I give a talk like this, I always refer to the book by Lauren Cunningham, The Book That Transforms Nations. In that book, he identified the 7 spheres of influence as education, government and politics, family, arts, entertainment and sports, religion and church, media, economics, which includes business, science, and technologies. So most of us Christians are comfortable being involved in education. Families is important to us as Christians. Maybe lately, Christians have got involved in arts, entertainment, and media. Yeah, we are Christians, we go to church, so religion is almost our second nature. Some of us Christians are involved in media. And then, of course, business, science, and technology is common career pursuit from most people, not necessarily Christians. And so for a while, most Christians have felt uncomfortable being in politics. So that aspect of the sphere of influence that relates to government and politics is what we're trying to talk about today, why Christians need to be involved. And in that book, The Book That Transforms Nations, the idea of Lauren Cunningham is that by influencing these 7 areas of the society, we can then influence our society and transform them by the impact of the gospel. So while most Christians will think they don't need to be involved in politics, everything that is even contained in the seven spheres of influence is ultimately driven by the politics and the government of the day. I want to give some scriptural background to the need for Christians to be involved in politics. Most of us are familiar with the story of Joseph in the Bible, and we are quick to say Joseph was prime minister. But we are often not mindful that being a prime minister in the entire country of Egypt was a political position. But I want to read from Genesis some verses there. Genesis 41. I'll first read from verse 15 to 16, and then from 33 to 45, I think. So Genesis 41, 15, 16 says, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream and no one can interpret it. But I've heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. But Joseph replied, I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. So prayer is one tool that Christians, if they get involved in politics, can use to influence society. Let's move on to verse 33. So now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Just a context. Joseph has interpreted a dream to Pharaoh about 7 years of abundance and subsequent 7 years of lack. And so Joseph interpreted this dream. And the response from Pharaoh was to look for a person with a wise and discerning heart and put in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. This was Joseph's recommending after interpreting dreams. So Pharaoh asked them, can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? So the officers have identified that in Joseph is a man with the Spirit of God. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there's no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge. That means you shall be the overseer over my palace and over all my people. And all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So here we see Joseph being involved in the politics and the governance of Egypt. What we expect of Christians to have is discernment, the spirit of wisdom, revelation, and knowledge. And those virtues or attributes that we have as Christians should be applied for us to be impactful in the political landscape. Otherwise, you begin to ask, why is God deposited in us this wisdom, this spirit of discernment to be a people of influence? So going to verse 41, it says, so Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took a signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in the chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, make way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. He put Joseph in charge of the whole land of Egypt. So when you look at the 7 spheres of influence that I enumerated before, education, family, arts, entertainment, and sports, religion, media, economics. All of those spheres are, in a way, they are local. At best, they are regional. But in government and politics, you are almost in charge of the entire country, in this case, Joseph. And so people make policies that drive the other spheres of influence. It is government and politics that is the independent sphere in these 7 spheres that we identified. Others are dependent on the government of the day. And then why we read in the Bible tells us to pray for people in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life. Now let's look at another case of Daniel. Again, similar background. These guys interpreted dreams and they got promoted. In Daniel chapter 2, reading verse 19, it said, during the night, the mystery was revealed to David in a vision. Then David praised the God of heaven and said, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream and it was going to do something drastic, eliminate people. So Daniel asked for a bit more time, spoke to his friend Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego about this dream. And overnight, the meaning of the dream was revealed to Daniel. So, like Joseph told Pharaoh, only God gives the answer to dreams. God is the revealer of secrets. So Daniel in verse 45 says, this is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of a mountain, not by human hands, a rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. This dream is true and its interpretation is trustworthy. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel and paid him honor and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. The king said to Daniel, surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery. So we are Christians. We have the Spirit of God. The Bible tells us that we will dream dreams, we will see visions. What is the purpose if we cannot apply it to impact our society? If all we do is limit ourselves to our family, our workplace, our careers, our church, which is not really a wide sphere of influence, then it will mean that we've not put to good use the gifts that God has given to us as Christians. We can see that Pharaoh recognized the God in Joseph. We can see Nebuchadnezzar recognize the God in Daniel. But just like Joseph in verse 48, it says, then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and placed him in charge of all his wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. So with Joseph, we saw the use of the word commissioners. And here we see the word use of administrators. So Daniel is being made the ruler or governor over the entire province of Babylon and is appointed his friend to help him administer the region. So these are scriptural references of people who were involved in politics that we read about, but we are not maybe quick to understand that they actually involved in the politics and governance of that day and ruling over a people. And if you look at it from Daniel's point of view, by being made the governor, he was able to exercise influence to appoint his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as fellow administrators and bring good value. Now let's go to few more scriptures. The scriptures we commonly cite and quote as Christians. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach. That's Proverbs 14:34. In Proverbs 29:2, it says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked people rule, the people mourn. The question is, what does it mean to be righteous? The simple dictionary definition of righteousness is to be good, to be a person of virtue, to be upright, and to be in right standing. What most people do not understand is, regardless of the form of politics that is practiced, there's a feeling and a belief that there's some morality that underpins politics. But good and evil, or good or bad, depends on the prism you are looking at. If you look at it from a Christian point of view, you will understand that what Christians perceive as good may be different from what people of other religion or beliefs perceive as good. But behind every political system is a desire, there's a moral foundation. Everybody thinks they are doing what is good. Those who believe in capitalism think they are trying to protect people's private protection. Those people believe in socialism, believe that government or the public should own the things that belong to everybody. Those people believe in communism, believe that the state should have absolute control. So behind every political ideology, there's an inherent belief that we are trying to do good. But there's a difference in perspective. That is why Christians must bring their value to bear, because what we see as good will be what is desired by our Christian upbringing. So the Christ in us that is different from what other religion brings. So if Christians refuse to participate in politics, it means that somebody else's definition of good is what we will accept. And we will be obliged to submit to the government of the day. But when Christians are involved in politics and governance, we can begin to bring the God in us into the equation, into the mix. So I give you an example. At the moment, for those who follow a bit of politics, there's a new bill in the House of Parliament about assisted dying. What does a Christian believe about life? Christians believe that it's God that gives life and God that takes away. But if you don't have enough people who share our belief, the likelihood is that that particular bill will say true. And as people in the society, as Christians, we have to put up with what the government of the day says we have to do. So there's a lot of reasons why Christians should be involved in politics. But in trying to bring this to a close, I want to address one important issue that I think Christians must take seriously. I often hear people say, oh, our vote don't count, we don't have to vote. Or should we even vote as Christians? Is it biblical to vote? So here I want to read Acts chapter 1, verse 23 to 26, where it talks about casting lot, because voting is about casting lots. So in Acts 1, 23 to 26 says, so they nominated two men, Joseph, called Barsabbas, also known as Justus, and Matthias. Then they prayed, Lord, you know everyone's heart. Show us which of these two you have chosen to take over this apostolic ministry, which Judas left to go where he belongs. Then they cast lots, and the lot fell to Matthias. So he was added to the 11 apostles. So I want to give an example here. Before the last general election, on the day, a brother in my church called me and said, I want to go and vote, but I slept and I didn't have good sleep because I wasn't quite sure who we should vote for. And he called me and he asked me to explain to him the different ideologies of the political parties, who were the main political parties, maybe Conservative, the Labour, the Lib Dem, the Greens, and the Reform, and what they stood for. And I explained to him my understanding of the beliefs and the values and principles of the different political parties and how they affect us as Christians, and why I chose to belong to a particular political party. Because people must have their political affiliation based on the values that they hold there. And it's that value that has influenced the political party that I belong to. And he said, oh, it was good that he spoke to me. Now that he has spoken to me and I've explained to him the different political ideologies, he now feels assured to vote a different way that he had planned to vote. So that's one example of applying this scripture, that when you want to go and vote, you can ask God for direction. Now, people need to understand that the Bible says we are in this world, that we are not of this world. While we are here, we are governed by the governments of the day. The Bible asks us to submit to governments. But the only way the only way you can influence who is in a position of authority, it doesn't matter whether the party you vote for wins or not, is to at least exercise your fundamental human right to vote for a candidate of your choice. By, like that brother did, praying, and then God leading him to ask me the following day what the different parties stand for. Now, finally, I'm not fixated so much about how governments of the day turn out. I'm more interested in the value that I can add in by virtue of my involvement in politics. And so, like I said at the beginning, I became a councillor at Wokingham Borough Council May this year. And by the grace of God, I belong to the planning committee. And I also belong to what we call the Climate Emergency Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It was quite interesting. Somebody had been monitoring my political adventure from 2023. And when the results came out in 2023, I didn't make it. And so this year, he was trying to do an assignment. It's actually a lecturer at Oxford Brookes University. And they come to Reading every year to look at the infrastructural development. So this year he told me yesterday that he was thinking about who to invite. Normally, when the students finish the tour on the day, they invite somebody who can come and give a talk on infrastructural development. So he went back, and in his search, he looked at Wokingham Borough website and saw my name, and he said, oh, that means he actually won this year and he's now a councillor. So he invited me. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to give a talk to the postgraduate students on undertaking infrastructure planning at Oxford Brookes University on the development in one of our strategic development locations. South, we call it south of the M4 strategic development location. And so that was an opportunity to add value to the life of people by my involvement in politics, which I otherwise would not have had the opportunity. So in my drive in life, I've always been motivated by desire to add value. And hopefully, as I continue on this journey, there'll be more opportunities to add value to people's life. And so I'm more fixated and encouraged by desire that as I continue the political journey, I will learn and become more acquainted with how the system works, and then be able to add value. Thank you.